Hello, I'm Nathan Duff with the Clarksdale Press Register and ClarksdaleInfo.com, and we're here today with Coahoma County School Superintendent Pauline Rhodes. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Nathan. How are you?
I'm good. Appreciate you giving us a little time today. Just wanted to stop in and check and see how things are going so far this year. We're, about halfway through the semester now?
Just about halfway. They take a 9-week test this week.
Oh, okay. Well, those are always fun. So, what can you tell us about some of the activities and things that are going on this semester at the various schools?
Well, actually, we really had a real busy year training for Common Core. That's been the most important thing that we've been doing, because there's been so much in the news about whether we're going to give the park assessment that's based on the Common Core, or whether the Mississippi legislators are going to abolish it. But as far as Coahoma County School District is concerned, we decided that we are going to fully implement the Common Core with the expectation of taking the park assessment this spring.
Okay. And what does that mean for the students?
Well, in my opinion, it means that the students are going to be taught at a higher level of rigor, because they need to be able to compete with students all over the nation. Right. And I understand that was the reason why the governors got together and came up with the Common Core standards. Right. So I don't see any harm in rigorous standards, just raising the bar a little bit if our students are going to be able to compete with students all over the state and all over the U.S. as well as nationally.
Right.
So, and internationally.
Well, there's been a lot in the news about some of the, I wouldn't want to really call them strange, but just some of the different ways that Common Core is approaching some, otherwise traditional learning methods, like some of the different ways they do math and things like that. Do you think the students will have any trouble?
Well, it's very different.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time looking at some of the questions. They're very different. They require the students to know a lot of facts and a lot of information, but it requires them to take those facts and apply them. And it requires them to be able to think critically and to do something with the facts that they know. It requires them to do a lot of writing, a lot of reading. So it's going to be a challenge, and the biggest challenge is just making sure our teachers are trained, because we tend to have more new teachers every year than what we would like. We're working on our retention, but we generally, retrain on the same thing just about every year.
Right. I imagine that does have a set of challenges that you wish you didn't have to deal with a lot of times.
And absolutely. So, and what I learned just recently is no matter how much training we've done, we still feel that our teachers are very uncomfortable. There's a lot of anxiety about the Common Core and whether they are prepared.
Well, I can imagine, because, especially teachers come up learning things one way, and then this is a radically new way of looking at a lot of things. So
totally different.
Imagine.
Yeah, and one of the things we did too that I thought was important, last year the district administrators, we got together and we made a decision that we were going to continue to teach the old Mississippi framework, because we were going to still take the old MCT2 and SAT2 tests. And we did so with anticipation of scoring higher. And it worked, because the preliminary scores, keeping our fingers crossed, that when the final scores come back, that the preliminary scores will be true, that our scores did go up. So it worked. But the disadvantage to that is that this year in April, we'll be taking the new assessment with just 1 year of full implementation of a Common Core.
Right.
Now, districts like, I'm going to say DeSoto County, that were already a level A, they implemented Common Core last year.
Oh, did they?
They did, and I understand the scores did drop. And I think
I would think that's to be expected.
That was to be expected, so the scores dropped. But they're a little bit ahead of the curve, because they have had already 1 year of fully teaching Common Core, and this will be their second year, whereas this is our first year full implementation.
Speaking of test scores, why don't you tell us, I know the scores from last year were released not too long ago, and we had some pretty good scores around here.
Well, we're excited, and we are just so discouraged that they are taking so long to get the final. Yeah. But it is a new test, a new accountability, not a new test, but a new accountability model. Okay. So the State Department is just taking every precaution to make sure that districts have had an opportunity to request appeals. And we did have one school to request an appeal. Okay. And that means that if there's a student that they feel should have counted and didn't, they can send in a request that be looked at. And that's what happened at one of our schools. So we're hoping that that appeal will increase the scores at one of our schools.
Okay.
But so far, we're showing that the district will be no longer an F, which that's to be celebrated
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we were in a predicament that the
Yeah.
district was labeled an F, and we had two schools that were New Start schools.
Yeah.
That was Jonestown and Coahoma County Junior Senior High School.
Right.
And that means they had been in F status for 2 years. So now it shows that they will not be an F. One school will have gone up to a B.
Oh, that's great.
We're hoping that the finals
Yeah.
will show that.
Yeah.
One school has gone to a B and the other one has moved up from an F to a D. So that gets them out of that New Start status where you would possibly have to fire everybody and start over again, which
That would
that's
be,
what the law called for.
that'd be a mess. And I have to ask, how are things out at Sherri?
Things are really going good at Sherri. We recovered from the tornado,
Yeah.
about 90%. We're still trying to get some equipment and supplies in.
Okay.
But the facility is back the way it was before the storm. I have to admit that it's not as good as I would have liked for it to be.
Right.
But the board did recently agree to go in and make some additional updates
Okay.
to install central heating and air. So we were really grateful for that. The parking lot.
Yeah, that thing does need some attention, doesn't
Now
it?
that is a sore subject because we repaved the parking lot. It may have been 5 or 6 years ago, and it probably lasted maybe a year before there were holes in it.
Yeah.
And we went after the contractors who did it, and we were not successful to get any legal, relief from them.
Yeah.
So we decided the only thing to do was to try to redo it again ourselves. And unfortunately, we bidded it last month, and there were
Yeah.
no bids.
Really?
There were no bids, and we're talking about a close to maybe $300,000 project.
Now, how do y'all advertise those bids?
Well, we hired a firm, an engineering firm, to kind of take the lead on that.
Right.
And they bidded it. I believe it was in all the local papers. I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
it should have
many
been.
out-of-town papers it was in. But we were told that the reason was probably because of the timeline.
Ah,
It was
okay.
scheduled to start construction maybe in December
Okay.
and be finished in October. Start in October, I think it'd be finished in December,
Right.
which I think is a rainy part of the year.
It can be. Can be. It's kind of hard to make predictions around here these years.
I think
so.
that played a part, I'm told,
Yeah.
as to why there were no bids. So
Okay.
at Tuesday's meeting, we're going to ask the board to allow us to rebid it probably in February or March
Yeah.
with construction to start in the summer.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll do the trick.
Well, we're hoping that this investment, will be a good investment. Sherri has always been one of our highest performing schools. Enrollment is growing every year. They're bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
So we think it's worth the investment.
And things going well between you and the board these days, I think. It seems like y'all are getting a lot done and seem to be on the same page most of the time.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. And I've been in this office 11 years,
Yeah.
and we've come a long way with board relations. We had an accreditation audit,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, we were out of compliance on several standards, and board superintendent's relations was one of them.
Right.
So I think we had an opportunity to sit down and meet and talk and hash things out. And I think that played a big role in us, coming to terms that if we're going to help the students and move the district forward, we've got to work together.
Yeah.
Because when the head of the organization is dysfunctional, it trickles down to everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today and look forward for some great things from the Coahoma County Schools over the next year.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.